Hi there, we're live. Welcome to Supercharged Fridays. This is Happy Hour. This is Sonal, and I have Andrew with me today. If
Right.
we've never met, hi, I'm Sonal. I'm a career coach. I'm in Brussels, and we're live on Facebook, Instagram. No, not Instagram. Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I'm looking because we had an issue with being live on LinkedIn, and I'm a little traumatized. So if something happens, hopefully nothing will happen. But as you can see, I have Andrew with me today. Andrew's a special guest. So if you're watching us live, come into the comments, say hi, tell us where you are, tell us what time it is. Don't be shy. It's Friday, everything goes. And give Andrew lots of little hearts and little claps. It's 1 in the afternoon. It's Friday for him.
Mm.
2 o'clock for me. Where are you? What time is it? Come in and give us a little push so the algorithm knows we're live and the algorithm is going to tell more people. Hi, LinkedIn user. I wish I knew who you are. I would actually call your name out, but it's lovely that you can join us. So, whether you're watching us live or you're watching us in the replay, a very warm welcome. And Andrew, I want to say thanks to you and thanks for being here today.
Well, it's great to be here. It's great to be. It's a lot of fun. We both armed with our tea.
We're both armed with our tea. And wherever you guys are, wherever you're watching, bring your favorite drink. We're not judging you. Whatever your drink is of choice, come in and join us. It's happy hour. And you're from London. Hi. I'm going to see on LinkedIn because I don't see your name. Hi, Suraj from Luxembourg. How are you? Hi, LinkedIn user. Okay, you guys, when you're done, you go into the settings and we've got this privacy setting where we can't see your name. So definitely take care of that because then I can't call your name out. Hi, Prashant. Very warm welcome. Okay, fabulous. So we have a pretty interesting topic today. And the topic, if I'm correct, is related to a lot of you because we're watching, and that's men. And we're going to talk about all things, not all things, but lots of things related to men and feelings. Yeah. We don't do that as men.
Can we do that? Can we do that on a live platform thingy?
We don't do that on a live platform. We don't do that on men and feelings is like this icky little subject. But if anything, these last few years, and hopefully these last few months, I'm not trying to undermine the tragedy we're in right now, but hopefully this helps us to realize that we need to talk about stuff like that. We need to talk about what men go through, their difficulties, their experiences, their challenges. I'm not saying it's different from men, from women, not necessarily, but there's different coping mechanisms, right? And it's different how the reaction happens. And I'm not trying to stereotype, but Andrew, correct me. Women are more. It's easier to talk about it and express it. So we want to be able to.
Better say that generally better communicators between themselves. Men tend to suck quite badly at communicating feelings. I think most people would agree with that. And largely due to conditioning, it's actually not an intrinsic thing. It's how we're raised.
It's how we're raised.
Yeah.
It's how we're raised. It's very true. It's very true. And we're gonna get started. I'm gonna do a quick shout out. Hi, Risto. Yes, I'm glad you have your lager. It's a rainy day here in Brussels as well. And Risto is also a coach. Andrew, which I think is interesting. So that was Zara. That's Zara. Olga is the one in London where it says LinkedIn user. It's like I'm it's like I'm a detective. And the other one was Ashish. Okay, lovely guy. Lovely to see you guys. Shivangi, Manjeet, Rajiv, Books, Hari Babu. How are you? Lovely to see you guys. So let's get cracking. So Andrew, you are a coach for men above 35.
Well, yes and no.
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Tell me the no part.
Well, the no part is I'm not particularly strict about the 35 thing, because people are all different at different ages. But the thing generally is that these men have got some experience behind them of life beyond university or whatever in their first couple of jobs. They've done other things. But there are also some women too.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, there are some women there, and certain women who have a specific need in a coach that I can meet. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna rephrase that. So Andrew, you're a coach. Yes.
I'm a coach. Yes.
You're a coach, but
Yes.
you were not always a coach. So
No.
for those who are watching you for the first time today, give us a little bit intro about your career and your background, like a little snippet, the juicy parts.
All right. Well, I'll keep it juicy. So basically spent 23 years doing what I was supposed to do, or what I thought I was supposed to do. And then the past couple of years doing what I was meant to do. So like a lot of men and women, I followed my nose and I studied and I was a good boy and got my degrees and things, and went between different jobs, mostly because I could. So mostly because I found I could do them, and I found that progressively I could earn more money doing different versions of them. So really interesting, and met wonderful people, traveled widely, and grew a lot professionally, mostly in pharmaceuticals, or life sciences, healthcare, that the end of things. And that's formed the bulk of my career. But over time, I became very aware that it was actually the people in the places that I was working in that I was more interested in than the work I was there to do, if you will. So that's how I've gradually ended up working with people as a coach. So I'm oversimplifying it, but yeah, 23 years doing what I thought I was supposed to do, and then 2 years doing what actually I'm meant to do.
What I thought I'm supposed to do versus what I'm meant to do. We're
Yeah.
all on a so all of us who are watching this, all of us are on a journey, right? And what the supposed to do and what the meant to do is, it's very different for all of us. So it's hopefully making you think a little bit about where you are in this journey, in this thing called life. So absolutely love that. So Andrew, let's talk about the men, right? Your clients, and typical. I don't like the word typical, but typically when they reach out to you, they have a very specific set of challenges, problems, questions. Can we talk about the top three in terms of what they are? Because I think it might help us to relate a little bit with that, and also how you help them with that.
Well, there's a general theme of stuckness.
Stuckness. Yes.
Stuckness, yeah. Slash, why aren't I happy? Why aren't I happy? Why aren't I happy? Even though, I've met my partner in life. Maybe I've bought a house. I've had my kids. I'm in a rewarding career, which is paying me well. I have these bright shiny objects. I've got a car on my drive, whatever it might be. I've got all these things. I've got a family that loves me. Why am I still not happy?
Yeah.
Is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Usually, no, there isn't. But do you know what I mean? It's why aren't I happy despite having achieved all these conventional measures of success? What might be going on?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is the fundamental question. Usually, the other three sort of top questions are versions of it, really.
So how when you hear this, I mean, so how do you address this, Andrew? Because in some way or the other, we've all been through it, right? Or we are going through it.
Well, it actually boils down to meaning in the end, and there's various models on it, and most people will know about Maslow's hierarchy of human need, right? So after basic things are taken care of, we start looking for meaning in what we're doing. And if that isn't readily apparent, it can be quite upsetting and disconcerting not to have a clue or a clear idea about what the meaning is in our day-to-day doing beyond, being part of a family or the personal side of life. So that occupation, the compelling thing that pulls you along through your life versus perhaps the circumstances that have pushed you into the situation you find yourself in, that's the nub of it, really.
Yeah, yeah. We have an interesting comment here. Supposed to do and meant to do is a very challenging concept. I'm afraid to open it up. We're here for that, okay? We're here for that. Andrew's here for that. We're going to help you hold your hand. It may not click right away. Today's, I don't think there's ever any coaching session, Andrew. It's never right away like this huge discovery and the clouds have parted. But the seeds, the idea is that seeds are being planted, right? Because it's a journey.
That's right. And LinkedIn user there, catchy name, is quite right. It can be a little bit daunting to be considering this because the lure of what you're supposed to do is super strong. From the very first moment you are a kid in a play group and somebody says to you, yeah, good boy, well done, you're responding to that. You know, oh, you are clever, you are strong, you are whatever it is. That continues all the way through your schooling, your education, your working life.
Yeah.
To reinforce the idea of this is what you're supposed to do to get this feedback. And it's quite easy to ignore the other way of actualizing your own self-worth, which is, you know, realizing that you worked hard on something or realizing that this thing is important to you. So this whole idea of external validation for achievement is what perpetuates the meant to do thing being far away and the supposed to do thing staying there.
Yeah. This LinkedIn user, it turns out it's Olga. So hi, Olga. I think you're the one in London. So Andrew, how do we address this? I'm feeling stuck, and let's put in a few more spices in there. I'm feeling stuck, and I don't know what I want to do next. So it's not like I'm unhappy where I am, but I honestly don't know where I need to go. So how do you help them?
This goes way beyond matters of career, actually. So it actually is more to do with what you're attaching meaning to. And I always start that process by having a conversation with somebody before any coaching happens, where I'll ask questions and stuff drops out. And most of the time, people don't have these conversations with their loved ones, really. They should, but they don't. And they don't actually verbalize what's going on in their own heads either. And as soon as you start talking to someone about these things, even if, you know, you could talk to a tree, frankly, and start to feel differently about it because you're verbalizing what's inside of you. When you do that, that's when stuff comes out and you can dig into it yet further by some more questions.
Okay. It's really good. It sounds very simple, talk it out, but how many of us actually do it, right? Particularly now we're talking about the other gender, and that's men. Talk it out. I love that you said that if you have no one to talk to a tree. There has to be a tree. There has to be a tree where you live somewhere.
Mad. I mean, right. So let's just get something out of the way. Talking about it sounds dead obvious, doesn't it? Just talking about it. But the minute it's outside of you and in the open, it's there as a thing. And you give yourself a chance to react to it yourself as to what might be happening. So no, it's not a sign of madness that you're questioning things and wondering about things. That's actually pretty normal. One of the biggest things I can do to reassure people I first speak with is that I've seen all this before, right? This is not unusual. This is not weird. You know, everybody has their own mixture, their own interesting blend of stuff that's going on, but none of it's really new.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's not easy. Rajiv, you're absolutely right. The distinction. So the other thing which is very beautiful, I think, which is a little scary for some of us, is when you talk about it, or you know, with someone or with something, let's say, the thing suddenly, firstly, it's out. It's no longer in your head. It's out. Second, maybe it has a name. I have a problem with this. You know, sometimes it's good to have a name for it because it has a shape or a form. You know. Okay. Any other points here, Andrew, that you want to mention?
Well, a lot of this supposed to do thing, if you're finding yourself not wanting to do it, then a lot of men, I think, can feel some shame around that.
Yeah.
Is there shame because I don't want to go and follow this path or be this be this version of a man, is that bad? Am I wrong for thinking that way? And well, no. But that's quite a thing to let go of, really. But for many people,
Yeah, and again, we're going back to the social conditioning, and
yeah, yeah, absolutely,
it goes way back. It goes way back,
yeah,
and I don't think that, because we have people from pretty much across the world, and I don't think this is a cultural thing. I think it's quite universal. Maybe culture has some influence to some extent, but I do see what you mean. And Andrew, we have always have interesting and intelligent people in the viewers as well, and they have their. I don't know if you can see the comments on the right hand side.
yeah. I can, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. So Risto is also, like I said, is also a coach, and he's mentioned that looking at the span of adult development, there's a lot of interesting research dealing with these issues like work satisfaction. Laura Gill and Erminia Ibarra have done interesting research. Yeah, and Risto, how would you maybe tell us in the comments, how would you summarize it in a very brief way, which I think is a difficult thing to do because these are books and volumes, but
Mm.
it's interesting. What does this mean, right? And Manjeet says, so where do we start to frame the question on stuckness?
That's a great way of putting it. Where do we start to frame the question? It's almost like asking someone to point at where exactly does it hurt. Um, Often it's just a general area, right? If you're feeling a physical pain, stuckness, it can be easy to think about it like machinery in a way because we're all in motion, we're all moving, um, and if you want a change to happen, somehow you have to pull the, as Americans would say, the wrench out of the works, right? To pull something out so that the machinery can start moving again. So the way I like to do it is to think of the thing that needs to be released in order for progress, movement to recur, to start again, rather than thinking of a location. Because it can be really hard to think, you know, where is the stuckness? It's more easy, I think, to think of what is it that actually needs to move for you to become less stuck. Which area of your life you feel that there's a wrench in the works in. You see that Sonal is departing. Are you still here, Sonal? Possibly a technical challenge. Well, I guess we can talk among ourselves if anyone is still watching. Um, I can see Manjeet's question still here, um, which is about the question on stuckness, which we've just handled. Are there any other questions that I can be helping with? Ah, technical issues. Bear with us, folks. It's possible that LinkedIn has broken. Okay. Um, so I saw a question come up around the men's groups I run and what are the top questions that they're asking. Well, actually, it's actually me that asks them the questions, right? So it's the other way around. And the kinds of questions that we're asking are different depending on the topic that we're addressing by week. So, you know, one week we might be talking about matters of career, which is Sonal's area of specialty. So I might ask a question: how do you feel when someone asks you, "What do you do?" What's the predominant emotion? If we're talking about health, for example, in another week, how would you describe your relationship with food, your emotional relationship with food? Um, we also, some sessions towards the end of the program, talk about women. So the question might be, what do you feel you don't understand about women, and how is that affecting you? So what we're doing is asking thought-provoking questions in a group setting that probably don't get asked normally, and discussing it as a group. Question here from Risto. Seems there are some universal way things turn out during a lifespan. The research I mentioned builds up frameworks that illustrate the change process. They're quite close to each other, different angles. They usually help the client to see they are not an exception, but this is a normal developmental process. Well, that's a really good point, isn't it? It's a really good point because it's really easy to think that there's something wrong. There's something wrong with us. Something wrong with how we are or who we are or what we are. And there isn't usually anything seriously amiss. It's all about perception of situations. I like your library, by the way, Risto. Greg is asking, see a job I want, go through LinkedIn for connections to hiring manager. They respond, but they don't remember connecting. End up sending resume to black hole. I think that might be a question that Sonal is better equipped to answer than me. And maybe more a function of, the LinkedIn job searching process. Someone's asking the journey to shift to doing what you want instead of what you needed to do. Hello, Sonal. Can you hear me? I can't hear Sonal. I can hear myself. While you're doing that, let me just address this question. So the journey to shift to doing what you want to do instead of what you need to do. For me, that was largely to do with noticing what was going on over a period of time, and as someone earlier said in the call, letting it in, actually acknowledging that that's the thing, that the people side of all of my career to date was actually the important thing. So for me, my journey was started when I had a particularly difficult time at work, and I was feeling pretty down about it, frankly. And my wife noticed that I was feeling pretty down about it, and she suggested that I contact a friend of mine, a guy called Simon Dawson, who is a coach. And I'd known Simon a long time, hadn't seen him for years, but I gave him a call, and we had a chat. And in about an hour, he had me looking at my situation in a very different way than I could have imagined. So I never really forgot that. It was enormously helpful to me at the time. And quite a while later, when I got a different job, I remembered that experience when HR came around and asked me about training I might want to do in my career for professional development. And I thought, well, I'd like to learn more about coaching because it really helped me in the past. And that started my journey in learning about coaching and doing courses and certifications. And from that moment, I was hooked. And basically, coaching became bigger and bigger in my life, and my job became smaller and smaller. So it wasn't a flicking of a switch. It was a gradual process of realization that it's something I couldn't not do. I still can't hear Sonal, unfortunately. No, I'll have to lip read. Jim Davidson is saying continual ringing. Yes, Vidya, that's a good point. Intentional about introspection and reflection will lead to self-awareness. Yeah, if you would try and push it away and ignore it, then that leads to a lot of unhappiness. If you reject what's actually happening, what you're being told by yourself. feel sorry for Sonal. She's clearly having some technical challenges here with the live stream. I'll keep trying to attempt to answer your questions as best I can. So, are there any more questions that you have? I'm having to look at the bottom of my screen, by the way, guys, so I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to read here. Okay, I'm going to restart the live stream. So I don't know what I have to do. Possibly stay put. I don't know if anybody can see me or hear me at this point. So I could either be talking to quite a few people or I could be talking to no people. Reminds me of demonstrating technology in front of an audience when I had my old job. That was much more nerve-wracking. This is just quite funny. So apologies to those of you that are holding a mug of tea wondering what's going on. I'm sure we'll get it fixed shortly.
Hi. Um, uh,
I'm
if
here.
you're still around, okay, if you're still around, do you remember sometimes you have a day? Firstly, I want to make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me. Okay. Do you sometimes have a day where it's a bad day, right? And not only is it bad, but it's also live. So I don't want to get into the technical. My camera stopped, my internet stopped, and I was trying to be calm. My husband comes in, my kids come in, and I'm like, get out of my room. So that's what happened. And Andrew is such a like. There's something to be said about the British stiff upper lip. Andrew, I can't tell you how grateful I am.
I filled the space, but I'm not sure what I filled it with. Probably a load of crap, but
I
we can
am so
start again.
we will continue. I apologize. If you guys are still around, I really genuinely love you guys. So we're going to continue, right? So Andrew, quick recap. We talked about the first thing that people talk to you about, and that is I'm feeling stuck. What do I need to do? And there was a fabulous question from Manjeet on how to reframe it.
Mm.
And you talked about it and you answered it beautifully. And then I kind of lost you. And then what are the other typical things, Andrew, that you hear people talk about?
Well, it's not really a typical thing. I mean, this idea of stuckness is pervasive, but they're issues of confidence. They're issues of caring what people think. They're issues of well-being in terms of being comfortable with your own skin, those sorts of things. I mean, these are all things that stopping men from actually living the life that they want to live. There's a lot of pressure to perform, and a lot of these things are the same, just the same for women, right? They're not unique to men. I don't want to give that impression, but the men that I'm speaking to, and I think many men will identify with this, that they seem to carry it in a certain way that's somewhat stoic.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and women carry their own pressures in a stoic way too. But you know, I'm here largely to help men with the way they're dealing with it, and
Yeah.
asking for help isn't a thing usually, right? It's a sign of weakness, as is the conditioning that you get. You know, to ask for help isn't cool, and don't do it, and try and figure it out yourself. But of course, that's the last piece of advice that you should take, because as soon as you do start talking to somebody else, it can become a lot easier to figure out what might be going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And sometimes you need to cry. Sometimes you need to let your feelings out. And then if that's what it takes, then it's not like it's easier for women. It's just maybe more acceptable. But that's a great point. Yes, Andrew did a great job, and I'm very proud of you. Because I know this might be your first live stream, and you're like, "Where's the host? What's going on?" So
Yeah, just leave me hanging there. You know, yeah, that's all right. Just on the point about crying and stuff, I think that's quite right. That there's all this big boys don't cry thing that's been propagated for years. Of course, men cry. It's just a bodily function, like sneezing or coughing or anything else. We do it. Not as often as we might do, but we do.
Yeah.
The last time I cried properly was when my dog died, and that was quite a while ago now, actually. But I was a wreck. I really, I couldn't hold that down. But I did feel better for it. But yeah, I've had, you know, not every time I'm coaching somebody is some man bursting into tears. It's not all that frequent, but it does happen, and it sometimes is actually through relief.
Yeah.
Not through any, you know, I'm sad about something. I'm relieved that finally I know this. I've been beating myself for a long time because I thought this about myself, and now I realize it's not true. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Okay.
And I agree with you, Rajiv. Vulnerability is a source of strength. It needs to be seen more and more like that, particularly with, I think, the leadership that we have in our respective countries. I'm not going to get into specifics, but there has to be a step-by-step start somewhere. Yeah, Andrew gave us a great example of how to deal with emotions in a live stream when things fall apart. So you're kind of walking the talk here. So I love that. You know, and we said a little bit about what can women do. We touched upon it a little bit, and obviously it's teamwork, right?
Yeah, I mean, let me reiterate again that women have some of the same challenges.
Yes.
They have different and distinct challenges that we as men would find it very hard to understand. But in this context of helping men, I think they can really help the men in their lives, whether they're brothers, husbands, sons, fathers, whatever. They can help them get better at communicating. I think that's fundamental. So an example I often use, and it's a shit example. Sorry, it's a bad example when I think of it. Sorry for the swearing. In the context of relationships, right? So many of you will know the singer Billy Joel, who had the song "Tell Her About It." So Billy Joel was divorced, I think, at least once, maybe twice. But so, you know, his track record isn't great on the relationship front as it stands in that way, but his song is perfect because that's fundamentally about communicating.
Yeah.
You look at the lyrics, it's about a man telling a woman how he really feels and noticing her properly and engaging with her on a completely human level.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can take that concept to all relationships, actually, in the other person, being present with them. And then, you know, not thinking of what you're going to say next in a conversation, but actually hearing the other person letting their words land. That's something that many men really struggle with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And all of us who are listening, who have sons, nephews, anyone who's younger, it's a great time to start. It's a great time to start. It's the earlier the better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a question I sometimes ask in the men's groups I do. You know, with the women in your life. So there's 8 men on this in this call. With the women in their life, what are you doing to help these women have a better and more positive impression of men? You know, who asks that question? Nobody. So I'm asking it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I love that. Um, Andrew, let's talk about, mistakes, right? And it doesn't have to be other people. It's also your own life
Yeah.
experiences and
Mm.
the experiences of your clients. What are typical mistakes that you have seen men making, particularly when they are dealing with challenges in their career, losing their job?
Mm.
Um, and I saw that there was a question, and I heard Andrew say that, maybe I'll let Sonal answer it. I promise you, who was that?
This was about LinkedIn, I think, and
Yeah, I promise I'll get back to you on it because
right.
it was a little bit different to what we're talking about. But
Yeah.
here, Andrew, how would you help us with this?
So mistakes. I think there are 3 fundamentally. So one, thinking it's too late, right? It's too late to do whatever it is that's nagging at you that you feel you must do. It's too late when you're in a box. Um, until that point, you're good. You've still got time. So that's one. Um, 2 is thinking that choices are limited. Um, okay, being an astronaut at age 50 might not be exactly possible, but it's a lot wider than most people think. The choices that are open to them. And that leads to the third point, because a lot of the time, this feel of constraint around choice is to do with the loss of some status, title, lifestyle, whatever. So the third thing is that thinking that your lifestyle is going to materially change if you make a different decision. Um, you might remember if you've advanced your career that the gap between your earning and what you spend and all this, it sort of stays the same. Doesn't matter how many promotions you get, it's the same the other way too. If you decide to take a different direction and earn less, you will still have food in the cupboard, you will still have a roof over your head, you will still have hot running water, right? The rest of it is bright shiny objects.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's great. I think we might be facing some sound issues, but you know what? I'll have to continue as long as you can hear me. You can hear me, right?
I think we're just having this conversation between us, Sonal, and
No, no, I'm getting feedback from people. Don't worry, it's not just that. Even if it's just us, that's fine. But I know that we have people around, and there was an interesting point. Did you already address it, Andrew from Bristow?
Risto's made a couple of points, so you'll have to show me which one is the current one.
Yeah, I can't seem to find it, but I think I highlighted it. So I think he was talking, and I think you addressed it. And Andrew talked to us about uncertainty, where we are faced with quite a bit of it this year,
Hmm.
right? Is there any sort of framework or step-by-step approach that we can? I know it's a bit too much to ask because
No, it's okay. I don't think there's a framework for it, mainly because I think there's always been massive uncertainty, right? Before all this COVID thing happened, the uncertainty was there. It's just that the certainty that they felt before was a perception. People perceived certainty before. The uncertainty's always has always been there. So if there's a framework to it, it would be to adopt a surfing mentality, because you really can't control the sea that you're in. Despite what you might believe, you can't control it. So if you can get to a place where you're surfing from one thing to another, not job, but one set of circumstances or opportunities, if you can surf between them rather than trying to control the sea of it all, then I would say that's about the best framework you could hope for.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I see that we have a great question from Manjeet, and Manjeet, I'm going to come to you. But Andrew, how would you define fulfillment?
It's a great question, that. Well, if you go and look at a dictionary, it's about achieving something, right? You've made a grade or you've jumped over a bar. But to me, I think this is more of a state where there is no work and there is no life. There's no balance to be had. It's just life. And you're doing what you do because you're enjoying yourself. That to me is fulfillment.
And enjoyment is a big part of it. I know that. You're just having fun.
Yeah.
Because you don't, I'm going to make a general statement, but you see that kids are usually happy. Kids are happy because they're enjoying themselves. The fun of it is very important, which I think at some point we stop. We stop having fun.
Well, yeah, of a sense of obligation or feeling what we should do, and growing up and civilization and manners and all these other things. I saw something, I think it might have been on LinkedIn, and it was like a graphic of all the things that kids get told, like don't touch, don't fidget, a list of don'ts, right? That some of us, including me, will have said at some point to our kids, don't do all these things. But through doing all those things, kids are learning. I know that my skill in doing all things home improvement and DIY comes from the fact that I took everything to pieces as a kid. Everything. I'd get a screwdriver and start taking it to bits. And it's only when I was probably 20 years old that I figured out how to put it back together again. So yeah, messy learning is something that adults forget quickly, and that's a real pity.
It is a real pity. It is a real pity. Speaking of adults, right? Manjeet says, can you talk about the mid-career stigma? Some call it midlife crisis. I don't even know if I like that term, midlife, because our ages, our life expectancy is going up. So what used to be considered mid, maybe only 1/3, with everything.
What does Manjeet mean by that? You'll have to help me here.
Yeah, Manjeet, mid-career stigma. So what is the stigma? Manjeet, if you're still around, please help us clarify with the stigma that you mean attached to being mid. When you say mid, I'm guessing 20 years experience, something like that. Yeah, more or less. So what does that mean for you? It would be great to hear from you.
I wonder if he means, too mature in the career to be good value for money, and not quite senior enough to be leading the operation. So basically, an expensive resource in the middle. I wonder if that's what he means. But
yeah. We'll let him answer this. Hi, Andrew. Nice to Anthony. It's great to see you, Anthony. He's a new friend of mine. Fulfillment is not just about being happy, right? It must also involve a sense of growth and becoming a better version, a better version of yourself. Yeah.
I'd agree with that. Yeah. Happiness and fulfillment aren't the same thing. And there's loads of different ways of looking at that, but in my mind, at least, it is not about attaining a certain thing. It's about a state where you're in some kind of a positive movement, a flow that it's not effortless, right? Because you can be fulfilled and working really hard, and it be stressful and all the rest of it, but there's a sense of well-being that goes with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rajiv would define it as a personal sense of achievement, which is great for me and will be different for. I think that's beautiful.
Unique, but, Rajiv's version will be unique to him.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't care about. I don't know if this is still you, Olga. They don't. I mean, I think the fear is not there, right? And I also love the surfing attitude. I love that metaphor. It's a very powerful metaphor. So Manjeet, you're asking us again. So we just asked. Can you just help us to clarify?
I'm not sure I know what it is. There are lots of connotations that come with mid-career professionals, but also the things they might be feeling. So maybe, Manjeet, if you can help us with which part you mean, I can.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit, just elaborate on your question and what is specifically you're looking to answer, and we'll definitely help you out with this answer. And Anthony says, perhaps the stigma is more about stagnation. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
I think my money would be on that as well, but I'll
Yeah.
wait for Manjeet to get back to us. What can men learn, Andrew? Rajiv is asking, what can men learn from women to deal with their feelings? Any insights that you can share based on your experience working with men? It's a great question.
Well, women do suppress their feelings as well, right? They do, but they don't seem to have. Women have a whole different set of conditionings that they have to battle with, but not usually involved with, the suppression of an emotion, right? So, the main insight would seem to be to acknowledge what is a feeling. You're experiencing an emotion. Okay, so what? Right? It's okay to do that. Some of the worst things that you can hear in a business setting, I think, is when someone says, "Let's take the emotion out of the problem." Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't really get it, because there is emotion around it, which maybe need addressing as well, and it's worth talking about that. You can try and separate it from the problem, but they're combined, whether you like it or not.
And it's
Controversial, perhaps, but
yeah, yeah. Give the problem a name and be honest with it, and
yeah.
not sort of circle around, beat around the bush, but call the elephant. There is an elephant in the room, then call it by its name, whatever
Right,
that
because otherwise you end up with suppressed emotion the whole time, and you get big eruptions happening, where things have been, bolted down with a lid on for a very long time in all kinds of different contexts and environments. So, yeah, if men could actually address some of that by noticing what the emotion is, they can then choose what they do with it. So, I'm not saying that we should all suddenly become impulsive and throwing our toys out of the pram, far from it, but actually recognizing the emotion for what it is could be really helpful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's a great point. And also, like what you said, Andrew, women suppress as well. I personally know women who have, you know, ulcer-related problems because of not having expressed, and it sort of manifests itself in a physical symptom. So it's not that women have all the answers. Maybe they have had a parent who's, I'm not going to get into psychotherapy because it's not my area,
Me
but
neither.
sometimes it's about that parent who's been more open and loving, that you've been close to. And for women, it's the mom. Sometimes it's the dad. But anyway, it's very interesting.
I'd like to say I think that men and women have more in common than they don't.
They have more in common than they don't. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We're human beings.
Right. We're humans first. Men and women are different, but they have more in common than they don't have, is how I think of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do agree with you, Risto. I think there is also, I think that was the stigma was more related to plateau or stagnation, as Anthony says. But I'm not able to hear back from Manjeet, so I'm not sure what's going on. But we're going to continue. So I think this has been really helpful. If you have any other questions, please put them in the comments. But we're coming close to the end. So I'd like to talk to you, Andrew, about lessons. This is something I think I like asking all the guests because it's great fun, right? If you could talk to your 21-year-old, 22-year-old, 30-year-old, doesn't matter. Like that Back to the Future car. What was that car called in Back to the Future?
DeLorean, wasn't it?
DeLorean. You take it back with this crazy nutty professor, and you're watching yourself, right? You're watching yourself do your thing. What would you say to that person if you could?
Well, I think first thing I would, before we answer that question, I'd say no regrets from me about what's happened, because everyone you can't live your life backwards. So what happens, happens. But useful things to have known, I think, would have been these 5 things. So 1, your ego is not your friend.
Oh,
It's not your friend.
Oh, I love that. That's
It's
a
not
tweet.
mine. It's not my phrase, but I heard it somewhere and it's stuck with me. It's your ego is your friend. You can acknowledge it, but more often than not, it will get in the way. So how you manage for that, and realizing that it won't serve you, I think, is a really powerful thing. The second one is no need to prove to other people anything. You can prove it to yourself, but most of the time people aren't watching, right? So don't waste energy trying to prove things to them. Third one I only learned in the past couple of years, and this is the idea that the passion for things comes from inside of us. It's already there. There's a huge temptation to read popular literature and think that there's something out there that you're going to go and get passionate about. I don't agree. I think it comes from inside. It emerges over time and you become aware of it. It's not something you have to go searching for with a magnifying glass on a rucksack, Sherlock Holmes style. It's in there already. 4, be present with people. Properly pay attention. If you need a lesson on that, look at a dog, right? Dogs know how to pay attention, especially if you've got a collie. You know when you hold a ball up for a dog, that's present.
Yeah.
Be more dog in your interactions with people. Give yourself to the conversation. Don't try and look good, sound smart, or anything else. What is that person saying? Where is it coming from? Be present with it. And I guess the final one really is about assumptions. Don't assume that you know what someone else is going through, or you don't know their story. Don't assume things about them. Don't make up things about them. Right? Don't make up things about what they might be thinking. You don't know. You can't know.
No.
So don't waste energy on it. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
So 5 different things there, but I think to have known them earlier in life may have made that story a little bit different, perhaps.
No, I love that. A quick recap. Your ego is not your friend. No need to prove anything to anyone. Just prove it to yourself, first and foremost. No need to go around looking for passion. Hire a coach who's going to help you find your passion, your mojo. It's already there. Just give yourself permission and let it out. Love that. And be more like a doggy, like a little sweet little doggy, because doggies are not on their phone and like, yeah, I can hear what you're saying. No, the dog is like literally one track mind. When am I going to get my bone? So it's like focus, complete focus. I love that. And lastly, don't assume. And we all know what they say about assuming, right? Assume, you make an ass out of you and me. And it's got us into trouble, definitely. So thank you, Andrew. This has been wonderful. I'm not able to hear back from Manjeet. I'm not sure he's around anymore, but we're going to continue in the interest of time. Hi, Shravani. So Shravani is in Switzerland, and she says, you're very welcome, Shravani. How can a woman constructively support a man going through a big, transformation or a change at the workplace? Very, very apt, questions, very appropriate for the time that we're in right now.
Yeah, I think how can anyone support a man going through that, whether it's a man or a woman, really? I don't see it as different, but ask him how he feels about it. I think that's the starting point. I'm sure there are bits to that transformation, and whether the transformation's with him or the transformation is with the workplace, they're different things. But ask him to externalize how he's feeling about it and what that means. What does that actually? What will it mean for him when this transformation is brought about? And then other topics, I think, would fall out of that.
Yeah.
Being a conduit, being an ear for that, I think, would be enormously helpful.
Yeah. And Anthony says, make them feel loved and appreciated. Good old fashioned.
Yeah,
absolutely. Can't go wrong with that. So love that. There's a lot of stuff that we covered. Andrew, do you want to summarize quickly about that little bit when you were by yourself? Was there anything that maybe that was missed out because of all that confusion that you want to repeat, that something came up?
I can't remember what I waffled on about there. I think I filled it with a little bit about the groups I do, in that the assumption might be that people are arriving with questions in those, and that isn't the case. It's more, I come up with some very spicy questions to be grappling with. And these guys, the 8 of them or the 5 of them or the 6 of them who don't know each other that well, are able to talk about those freely in a way that they wouldn't normally do. So I think the final question example I gave was, one about the topic of women, actually. What do you not understand about women?
Hmm.
And how is it affecting you? It's a great question to ask a bunch of men.
What can you share some of those answers?
Well, where to start? Let me go one better than that. A really fun question I've asked before is, imagine that you are the sole survivor of a plane crash along with a woman. So not the sole survivor, but it's you and a woman. You've both survived this plane crash. What assumptions are you making about your role as the survivor with a woman? And you'd be amazed at some of the responses that come out, ranging from, gosh, I hope she's got a degree in aeronautics so we can get to, proper caveman stuff, frankly. So everything in between. But one thing that I would say is that men have an enormous capacity to surprise you with what they do think about. So it's not what it necessarily says on the tin.
Yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, so interesting. I wonder if anybody in the audience would like to answer that. If you were the sole survivor of a plane crash, could you repeat that, Andrew?
Yeah, it's a question I ask in my men's groups. If you survived a plane crash as a man, and there was a woman, she'd survived too, and the rest of the passengers had all sadly perished, and there you were, crashed. What assumptions are you as a man making about your role?
Mm. Mm.
It really gets men thinking. And some of the responses are quite surprising, right? Not what you would think. It's not, you might assume, for example, that men are going to say, oh, I'd want to make sure she was protected and all the rest of it. And that's not what happens. That isn't what happens at all. It's much more resourceful than that, right? More imaginative than that. So men have got capacity to surprise people with how they think of situations, beyond all the stereotypes and conditioning that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Maruti, I love how you said it. Lots of stuff to learn and unlearn and relearn, and that's true for all of us. I don't want to, single out the male gender. So that's a great question. I was just going to say one more thing before I continue, and that is that if you don't follow Andrew already, I highly suggest you do that on LinkedIn. His content is fresh, unique. There was something last week about not caring about what other people think, and there was literally Andrew looking at the camera like this, shooting a video in his garden. Get this, with a fried egg on his head. And when I say fried egg, it was not a plastic fried egg. It was a real fried egg on top of his head. Hopefully it wasn't too hot, because you'd have this scalding burn mark on your forehead.
I put it in the freezer, actually. There was a serious point to it, that there was a serious point to it. It was about not caring what people think, because once you're comfortable with your reasons for doing things, it doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly. And literally, I saw you take that out and actually put it in your mouth, and you were like, I'm proving a point here. And if I can do it. So, like walking the talk. So I highly suggest that you follow Andrew, follow his content. He has this group that comes together. How frequently, Andrew?
Well, the Men's Growth Crew is a 10-week thing. So it has a beginning and an end to it. But at the start, you've got men that don't know each other. And by the end of it, they're very good friends, because they've shared a lot about particular topics on a weekly basis. But you can contact me on LinkedIn about that if you like.
I highly suggest you reach out to Andrew if you're looking at that sort of the kind of questions we're talking about today. I highly suggest you reach out to him. It's called the Men's Growth Cruise, but just follow Andrew on LinkedIn. I'm gonna tag him in the comments. I'm just gonna quickly go back and see, because the thing that we talked about with helping men who are going through a difficult transformation at work. Shrabani comes back to it and she says, you ask them, right? But they don't express themselves in stressful situations. What do you do then, Andrew? You get those like one-word answers.
Yeah, but that's because there's a lot of stifling of emotional range going on. Often they don't know what to say, right? How to communicate it, because usually they're ignoring or blanking something that's fundamentally wrong, right? So a stressful situation at work, there's the situation at work, but there's actually what's behind that. What does that actually mean for the man in the situation? The situation isn't usually the thing. It's it's what it means for him. So
Yeah.
if you ask the question about the situation and take the focus away from the situation but move it to the meaning behind it, then you'll get further in helping this man with his situation.
Yeah, and it takes time, right, Shravani? It takes time and it takes commitment, and it takes a lot of daily prodding and daily practice. At some point or the other, they're going to come around. I'm not sure if this is Olga, but is there something similar? Yeah. Is there something similar for women? Yes, if that's your question, yeah, it is similar for women.
Yeah, and there are some wonderful coaches out there that focus on women too. That we both know. Some are people like Elise Finn, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and they're doing great work, and fabulous. So there's so much to talk about, and lots of people who are expressing gratitude for this session, and who are loving it and bringing in their 2 cents. Rajiv, appreciate that you're here, and expressing the ability and feel the feelings, man. It takes time. We're all on our own journey, and Anthony, as Anthony says, more importantly, don't add to the stress. This is a very good point, Anthony. Just make sure you leave space for him. What I've noticed, which is very interesting, is when there is a man, let's say a man in my life, my dad, my husband, whoever, my brother, and if they don't want to talk about it, and I make it about that, like, you never tell me anything. See, I'm not helping. I'm actually causing more stress, and that's not necessarily what they need. We don't realize.
That's where a coach can be helpful, because you're there in that space. It's a container that's called coaching, and there is space to talk about whatever it is without any other distractions, or there's no judgment, for one thing. The coach is never going to have an attachment to a particular outcome for that man. So I care, but I don't care. I care about the person, but I don't care about what they go and do. That's on them. So
that's on them. Yeah,
there's attachment in that.
Yeah, and that's the difference between a coach and a really good coach, an exceptional coach, because they're more interested in obviously the transformation, but the attachment to the outcome. Because at the end of the day, it's not the ownership is not on you; it's on the person, it's on the client.
Well, right. If as coaches we owned everything our clients were going through, we'd be finished after a day of coaching, wouldn't we? Because we'd take it all on personally. Yeah,
exactly. All right, fantastic. I love it. This has been so helpful, Andrew, and I'm going to again summarize, because I really, really love those 5 points that we can all learn from you. Remember that your ego is not your friend. There's no need to prove anything to anyone. Even if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, you think you have to at this stage, you don't. Just prove it to yourself. You've got the passion within you. There's no need to hunt for it outside. Be present. Be really, really present. And finally, don't assume anything. So fabulous. I want to say a big, big thank you to everyone who's been here. You kind of stuck it out with my little tech drama.
Yeah.
And for that, I want to say thank you so much. And I want to say thank you, Andrew, for being so calm and so patient while I was like this paddling duck going completely bonkers. It's like literally never happened before. I want to say a big thank you. So thanks everyone for being here. It's never the same without you wonderful folks. So wish you a safe and a healthy and a happy weekend. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.